Hello and welcome to Chuck's Diecast Car and Model Reviews. Today we're taking a look at the Ferrari 312 T4. This model is made by Exoto and is in 1/18 scale. Now the Ferrari 312 T4 is the car that won the Formula One championship in 1979, and it was won by the South African Jody Scheckter. The car was victorious in 6 races. It actually had 3 victories by Mr. Scheckter, and then another 3 victories by Gilles Villeneuve. However, if you take a look at the underside of this car, you'll see that it says it is the Ferrari 312 T4 T5. And the T5 was basically a, I guess you could say, an upgraded or updated version of the T4 that raced in 1980. And such was the pace of advancement in that era, and that was the era of ground effects cars, that it went from winning the championship in 1979 to not winning a single race in 1980. The reason, a lot of it being that the car had a flat 12 motor, and the flat 12 motor was, sure, it provided a great center of gravity and a lot of power, but it also was very wide, especially in comparison to the V8s, Cosworths that Williams and Lotus had, and those had just a narrow sump, which allowed for large Venturi tunnels underneath the car to provide downforce, and the Ferraris just didn't have that capability. So it went from hero to zero, basically. Now the reason, this is actually the 1979 car. The reason you can tell is that this is number 11. And, of course, the following year when it was racing so ineffectually, because it was the championship winning car, it was number 1. So that's how you can kind of tell the difference. Now, I got this thing for a pretty good price. Actually, I got it for probably half of what one would normally go for on eBay, and the reason being is this, and it has a broken windshield. I don't know how it broke, but my hope is someday I will have the capability, maybe the technology, or maybe somebody out there who's watching this video can help me out and make a replacement windshield. And then I'd be a happy man. But why did I buy this car? It's because this is one of my favorite Formula One cars. I just think it is so cool looking. The styling is awesome. It's enormously wide in the body here, and it's got these big old wheels and tires. You may remember the famous footage of Gilles Villeneuve driving one of these on 3 wheels. One of his, I think it was his left rear, had gone flat, and he's still giving it full stick while the rear tire is flailing and falling off the rim, and that sort of stuff. But I actually never got to see this car race. This was 1979. I was a kid. We didn't have cable television. We didn't have the type of Formula One car coverage in the United States as even a couple of years later they did. And so I never got to see this car race. The reason why I like this car so much is that when I was a kid, there was a Tamiya model of this car, and the painting on the cover just looked so cool. It just looked like such a cool car on the box cover. I always wanted the model, but if I recall correctly, it was in 1/12 scale, so it was gigantic, and it was really expensive. I couldn't afford it, and I knew that with my rudimentary modeling skills that I would probably end up ruining it, and I would be really upset that I did such a terrible job making the model anyway. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this model here. Again, this is just a beautiful car. The model itself is fantastic. I mean, I guess you could say the one problem with it is that this shut line here is too wide. You can see here that it has side skirts, as the other cars did back in the day, to try and create a sealed bottom for ground effects. Decals here on the side here look wonderful. I love the depth of these wheels. I mean, let me just show you here. I'm going to stick my pinky in there, and lose the whole end of your finger in that wheel. Nice that they also include the valve stem in that wheel there too, as well as the Michelin branding on the tires. Front wheels look completely different from the rears. They're these funky four-spoke things with the gold, and you can see the center cap a lot easier on there, and of course they are so much narrower than the rears. And I like the fact that they have sort of the molding marks on the tires too. That's pretty neat. The modern cars, when you get them brand new, they're slick, but these cars did not have the same molding techniques, so you can see these dimples on the tires. You take a look at the front of the car here, and of course this is the aspect I like so much. And I've seen one of these. I saw it one racing at the historic races at Laguna Seca some years back, and so I get to get close-up looks at this thing and photographs, and I was so happy I got to see one of these in person. I love the Hoyer badging and the Ajip oil. You can see the decals are fantastic. The paint looks really, really good here as well. No complaints at all with that. And then when we go around to the rear of the vehicle, you will see a lot of interesting stuff, actually, okay? First of all, you can see the quad exhaust. You can see from here the rear suspension. You can see the rain light on the rear there as well. And then the other nice thing about this model is that it has a removable upper chassis there, because that's all there just for aerodynamics, is not any structural part of the car. And well, let's go ahead and take a look at this flat 12 motor. Look at that. It's fantastically detailed. It has screen over the intake trumpets. You can see here that it has a coil, plug wires, all that sort of stuff in there. Let me get a little bit closer so you can see that. So that all looks just fantastic. You can see, I guess that white thing might be electronics or something like that for the fuel injection. I couldn't tell you for sure. And then when you look at the rear of the car here, you'll see something interesting as well. The gearbox is different from what you'd see in a regular Formula One car of the day, because this model of Formula One cars known as the 312T, and the T stands for transversale, meaning that the engine is mounted transversely instead of longitudinally like pretty much every other car except, say, front-wheel drive cars, modern front-wheel drive cars. And that is basically, my guess is to save length on the car, because the flat 12 engine would be so long that if you had a longitudinally mounted gearbox, it would be really long as well, and make the gearbox and engine set so long that the wheelbase of the car would be really long, which would affect the handling of the car. So I'm pretty sure that's why Ferrari did that. The other interesting thing you will notice is on either side of the gearbox, you will see that this car has inboard mounted discs. This was kind of a common thing in Formula One cars back then. I know Lotus had them, things like that. It saves on unsprung weight at the wheels, and so you know, I guess one problem would be cooling. But you can see here that there is some ducting here that leads to the brake calipers to assist in cooling. Okay, and so again, there's another look at the rear of the car, the transmission and all the goodies there, and the engine. So now it's time to take a look at the cockpit here. And again, this is really well done. The seats look excellent, as well as the seat belts and the buckles there too. They look to be both you know, photo etch metal as well as plastic for the locking mechanism down, you know, that you can see up at the top there. It's really neat that you can see here the shifter, because of course this is the 1970s and this car had a manual transmission. So there's the shifter with a wooden knob, and you can even see the I guess you'd call that the shift rod going back to the transmission. Detail here, as you can see on the radiators, looks really good. And then when you look at the rest of the cockpit, I mean, there's really not that much to see on a car from back in this day. I mean, there you have a steering wheel. You've got, you know, with the cars of this day, all you had was like maybe 4 gauges, and they're all behind the steering wheel there. You know, a tach, probably a water temperature, oil temperature, and pressure gauge maybe, and then maybe an ammeter or something like that. But there's not much to see in there, and there's also not much protection for your feet, because you lift off that cover, and then there's the footwell for the driver, and you can see the 3 pedals there as well. So yeah, racing was not the safest back then, and of course, unfortunately, a couple of years later, Gilles Villeneuve did lose his life in a Ferrari. So anyway, that is it for the Ferrari 312 T4. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Have yourself a great day.